Hey everybody, what's going on? In this video, we are going to be making part 8 of the Modular Environment Modeling series in Blender and Substance. So I'm going to open up Blender quick, open up our environment creation file, and in this video, I said I would be unwrapping the column we made and texturing it in Substance Painter. So I'll open up Painter as well before we get started. And you can see in the Blender file, I'm still keeping all of the duplicate models we made because I'm going to be making more wall variations with those later. So I'm still keeping them in. I haven't deleted them just yet. And okay, let's go ahead and quickly UV unwrap this. So same process as the last video. I just marked some seams while keeping this UV editing panel open, and sort of just try to figure out the textile density in my head as well as I can. It's just something I've gotten used to over time, sort of figuring out where to put seams. But yeah, after a while, it's not all too hard. I think on these hinges, the seams can just go here. I'm going to try to do this pretty quickly so we can get into the fun part, which is, of course, the texturing. Alright. Put some seams around these. This is a complex shape here. This might be a little more hard than the others because not only is it a cylinder that I've extruded, but I've also extruded out this rectangle here. So I'm going to have to section off the rectangle like this and unwrap that separately. So the rectangle will be a separate UV island when we unwrap the model. Okay, like that. Okay, for this shape, I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work. I guess I could put the seam. You know what? I'll wait till later for that. Okay, that's pretty easy. So for this, we want the seams here all the way down. I'll mark that. And I also forgot these. And it's pretty hard to see, and it's basically impossible to unwrap that without wireframe mode. So you want to make sure you're in wireframe mode whenever necessary. Alright, so I'll mark all those seams, and I doubt this is going to work first try. Yeah, so it's a little weird. For the most part, it's not bad. I want to see how this light came out. It's actually fine. But the column is not great. I bet if I were to texture that right now, there would be some weird stretching and things like that. So what I'm going to do is grab this line here and put seams all the way up that. And this isn't the perfect solution, but it should minimize the stretching a little bit. So you can see some of these pieces are overlapping. I'm not exactly sure why. Oh, okay, I fixed it. Alright, cool. So I think that's our simple unwrap. But we want the column to have, unlike the wall, we want the column to have unique textures between the left and right side. So I'm going to have to apply the mirror first. And now we can do the actual unwrap. And cool, it still looks good. I'm going to try to conserve as much space as possible, because the unwrap won't always maximize your texture space perfectly. So that's when you should go in by hand and do that yourself. And I work from left to right. Okay, that can fit right there. Maybe even slide it a little bit over. And I work with the big shapes first, because the other shapes you can just slide in to place later. And they can fit almost anywhere. Okay, I'm going to rotate it 90 actually. So it looks like a lot of these can fit up top. Can I get this big shape up there? No, it's too big. But it can go there. Alright, looks pretty good. And we'll just do the last shapes. Rotate 90. And we'll just fit in these last ones. So I didn't use up the UV space perfectly, but it's not bad. It's definitely better than the original UV Unwrap. And that's all I can really ask for. It's going to be hard to get it perfectly. You can see there's still a lot of open space. So I might try to scale it up a little more. Maybe there. It's a little too much there. All right, that's much better. I think I basically maximized it this time around. I like that. That went pretty well. So let's make a new folder in our environment. I'll call it 4x sci-fi 4x sci-fi modular column. All right. And I'll export this as an FBX with just the mesh and selected objects only. All right, and let's go ahead and texture this. So in Substance Painter, File New, and we'll open this up. I'll delete that layer, put in our first folder called Base. So we're using the same setup before. I'll drag in all the smart materials I need. And we want it to have the same color theme as the wall we textured in the last video. So I'm going to drag in all the same smart materials. So Steel Dark Aged, Plastic Glossy, and Rubber Dry was the last one. And I'll drag these onto base and put black masks on every single one of them, except the Plastic Glossy, because that is the base of all of it, and everything should have that as its base layer. I want to pick the right color. I won't be able to get exactly the same as the wall unless I took a look at the RGBs from that wall, but anything close should be fine. I think there's a little bit on the yellow side. I'll collapse that. And Steel Dark can go everywhere where there's supposed to be metal. And I think that's it. Maybe that as well. And rubber would probably be easiest to do in the UVs. So let me take a look. Okay, so right here. And I'm going to put the mirror modifier on for this, or symmetry, as it's called in Painter. Okay, so it's all of this. So I'm basically just giving this some rubber handles. For some reason it looks low res, even though it shouldn't be, because that's a pretty big chunk of UVs right there. But it looks a little low res. It's a little weird. Everything else looks good though. So is that the only rubber I want? Yeah, I guess so. So for the steel, I'm going to get rid of the steel here. Yeah, so all of this does not need steel. And neither does any of this. Alright, I like the look of that. Pretty happy with it. I also guess I forgot to turn on the symmetry for these bars, so I'll do that quickly. And I'll save it. And I'm considering making some of these hinges metal. So let's find where these hinges are in the UVs. Okay, so right here. So I'll just go across and make them all metal. Alright, nice. And you can see we accidentally painted some other stuff as well. So that looks good though. And I forgot symmetry again. So let's do this. Alright, and now I think we're done with the base texturing. Just the masks, the initial masks. So I'll go ahead and bake this at 4K. That might take a second to generate all these maps, so we'll just wait it out real quick. Baking in Painter isn't too bad though, especially when you don't have a high poly mesh. So yeah, it's not too bad. But the bake is looking good so far. And there we go. Alright, so already you can see the smart materials working now. And you can see the glossy plastic is a little strong. So I'll turn down the dust a little bit and turn down the stains a little bit. Something like that. Alright, pretty good. And now I'm actually going to put in more steel dark age than I planned. So I'm going to go into the UV island and paint all of these. So you can see the way I mark the seams. I made the sides of the column its own UV islands because I sort of had the idea of making them metal if it didn't look right in its original color. And I realized I like it better this way. So that really speeds up the process instead of having to go in and hand select every little face. So just by making it its own UV island, it's much easier to paint. You can see with just one click of the button here in the UV chunk fill, it's pretty easy to do that. And now I want to lighten up this metal because it's a little too much. It's a little too dark. That looks good. Maybe make these scratches a little more rough. Metallic is fine. Alright, so that's decent. I might actually get rid of the metal here, because if the whole side of the column is metal, I think the variation looks better if this is plastic. Alright, cool. Looks pretty good. So the next step might be to go in and get rid of the metal in some areas. So in face select, just sort of mark out where I want. So I think all of this I want to be plastic still. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. And what if I made this whole backside plastic? I don't know, let's just try it really quick. It's not bad. Yeah, it's definitely not bad. I just don't know if I like it better this way or not. So it could be like that or like that. I think this is good. Adds a little bit more interest. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is add a white mask on the base, and I'm going to delete everywhere where the light is going to be. So let me find the edge of the light, so right here. And let's turn off symmetry because it's being a little annoying. Okay. How did all that happen? I have no idea. Alright, this is acting a little bit weird, but I think that's good. And what I'll do is copy the mask, add a white mask here, paste it in, and invert the mask. Go into texture settings, add ambient occlusion, add in emissive, and I'll turn on the emissive channel here and make it something like that for now. And we have a light. So I messed up on the mapping a little bit. Alright, that's good. Okay, so I'll call this light. And I'll make another folder. Or no, actually that's good. I don't need that folder. So the light is going to be at the top of every single layer, so that even when I add like dirt and things later, I don't want it to get in the way of the light, because then the emission will look really ugly. So it's fine the way it is. Now I'll go into procedurals, and I want to add a bit of texture to this light. I'm just not sure what yet. But I think maybe something like that. If I scale it up, doesn't look bad. I'm not sure it looks good though. Maybe something like that. Just some stripes. And rotate it. Honestly, I don't know. I think what I'll do is make a folder for the lights, and this light will only have the emissive and the color, and then I'll make another folder on top with only the emissive And I'll drag in some cool pattern like this. And then I'll copy this mask, add a black mask, paste it in. That didn't work. Okay, I guess what I have to do is add a white mask, paste it in. And still no. I'll just hide that. So add a black mask, copy this, and paste it in. Get rid of the levels. I'm confused with what's going on, because that's not the mask I just copied, but I'll just do it by hand. So all right, so now we don't need any mask in the folder. So I want to scale this. And I want to add a levels in the emissive. And what I want to do is invert it. So that adds at least a bit of a pattern to the glow. So maybe we don't even need this light here. What I would like to do though is be able to change the color of this, but I'm not sure how to. But I can change the color here. And I'll just make that yellowish. All right, so I will call this the light, and we don't need this. I'll make it a little bit lighter. All right, so there's the light. I'm gonna add a layer called AO. And I'll only keep the AO channel, and I'll use the ambient occlusion map that we generated earlier. Okay, and now I'll create another folder, call it height information. So just the usual formula that I do when I texture stuff. And I'm going to look for this stripes right here. And I only want the height. Scale it down and rotate. And I want this to go over the rubber handles. I probably should have done the mirror modifier when I did that. Let's see if I got everything. That looks pretty good. I'm going to add a levels here with the, I'm going to add a level to the actual fill layer. Affected channel will be height, and I'll just tone down the amount of bump that we get so that it's very small. And I could even scale it up a little. So something like that, just give it a little bit of texture. I think that looks pretty good. So we could even mess around and add this in other places too, if you wanted. I'm looking for some more details that I think would look cool, that would add anything. But I think it's pretty good the way it is. All right. So at this point, I'm going to make a height subtract. So just turn the height all the way down, and we don't want any other channels. I'll add a black mask, and now we'll start using some alphas. So we'll have to go into the brush mode. And symmetry on, of course. And we'll start painting. So unfortunately, the textile density isn't perfect. You can see that's pretty low res compared to that. So what I might do to make it not as noticeable is just tone down the flow to like around 20, because it looked pretty strong as it was anyways. And yeah, that looks a bit better. I actually want the color channel as well, and I'll just turn down the color to black and lower the intensity a bit. Now I'm going to add a layers, call it normal. And now let's grab some hard surface. And I'll turn the hardness all the way up on our brush. And that looks pretty good. And I'm just going to go in and add a bunch of details. I'm going to try to make this look as convincing as I possibly can. And once in a while, I'm going to get rid of the symmetry modifier to add handles or whatnot. So stuff like that. And you can see a lot of it's just experimenting. Like a lot of stuff, a lot of the time I just put something down just to see what it might look like, and I just go back a second later. So it's just a lot of experimenting, seeing what you actually like and don't like. So it looks like I was a little bit nervous about the UVs for this light, and it looks a little warped, but overall it's fine. You see, nobody's really going to notice that. If anything, it actually looks pretty good. But you can see the textures are just a little bit stretched and warped there. So I'm not sure how much further I want to push the details on this, but it seems like there's still a little bit left to go. Probably a little more that I could do. Maybe just some stuff along the sides, because the sides do look pretty plain right now. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just like throwing stuff on. Maybe one in like every so often, just like try to evenly space it out. Could go back to the height subtract and maybe mess around with some more alphas. And I just realized I didn't do some of these details on the other side, so I'm going to have to go in and do that. I forgot to have symmetry on, so let me turn it off. Go back into the normals and do this. That's kind of a pain when you forget to do that. But I kind of just randomly place them anyways, so it's not too big of a deal. If it was something really specific, I'd probably go in and redo it. But nobody will really be able to tell. But from now on, I'll turn on symmetry. The detail is decent right now. I probably want to push it a little further. Look at some more hard surface. All right, that's pretty good. And I think that's almost enough for the base details. Maybe just a little bit more, like that. Just go around. And yeah, I think that's about good for that. So now I'll make another folder for other details. So I'll just call it details because it doesn't really matter. And I'll call this one metal add. So I'll make sort of a metal material, so a light color, a light gray color, fully metallic, not some decently rough, but still a little shiny, and we'll bump up the height. All right, so now in brushes, I'll go with the basic hard brush and add in a couple details. So I'll put a bump here. And then I'll call this emission. Maybe something like green. Lower the height. And sort of bump it in like that. And then also let's make it actually emit something. All right, nice. Looks pretty good. I'll go back into the metal add and see what else I want to do. Oh, okay. I probably should have put on symmetry for that. All right, that works. I'm going to go back into the height subtract as well. And that's because I want to carve out a little bit here. Make sure all our lines are straight though, of course. So yep, something like that. Also, I can straighten up this. All right, nice. Let's see what else we can do. Could subtract a little from here with a smaller size. So yeah, there's limitless possibilities really. but I'm just trying to figure out what looks good in my mind. All right. Is there anything else that I want to do? I guess there's literally no detail on this at all. So I'll put some on there. Maybe some here. Maybe I could make it look like there's a seam on this box. Something like that, but a little more interesting. Like that. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. And honestly, I don't really like the metal ad there, just because that's the only one there is, and I feel like it's out of place. So either I could add more, or I could just get rid of that. But yeah, let me get rid of that. So instead I'll just do the height subtract there. Yeah, I think that looks a little cleaner, a little nicer. Then I'll go ahead and do that every so often. Then at the top, I'll do the opposite. All right, cool. All right, so that's it for the height details. So what I'll do next is in the base, I'm going to add just a simple light blue color. Maybe like that. And I can go in, add a black mask, use the plane select, and just go in and select some of these. I selected a little bit more than I wanted to. And I'll leave that one the way it is. And now what I want to do is lower the opacity just so there's a little color differential, but not much. So I'm only at 40%. And I think I'll keep that color right there. I'll just save again. And now in details, I'm going to add some red, another black mask, and let's use a couple more alphas. So something like that, or maybe I'll do that here on the lower one. That makes a little more sense. And then on the upper one, I can maybe say something. Maybe like that. Like that. Doesn't really have to mean anything, because it's such a minute detail anyways. Let's do a couple more though. Put symmetry back on. Maybe something like that. Alright, so now in height information, I'm going to go into the height subtract again. Grab another alpha. And just put in a couple more details. The very low opacity, so we don't draw too much attention. Something like that. I'll leave the front how it is. And in the normals, that looks pretty good. All right, cool. And at this point, Going to go back into details, just make a normal metal. So fully metallic, a lighter color, add a black mask, but we don't want to affect any other channel besides those three, so we don't want to bump up the height or anything. I'll go with the basic hard brush once more, get rid of the mirror, and now I just want to quickly paint in this. Doesn't have to be too perfect, but as long as you get the idea. So yeah, it just makes it look a little bit better. Can also paint in this as well. And once you're done, you can always go back in and trim it up. I think that looks okay. And there's one more here. I'm not sure if I perfectly centered this, so I might have to. That's not bad. It's almost centered. I can trim it up a little bit once I'm done. But I think that's pretty good. I can fix it up a little bit. Alright, so now I'm going to make a new layer, or actually a new folder called Smart Masks. Drop in the fill layer, Smart Masks, okay. And I always like to start off with some sand, just to fill in some of the crevices. And I always only affect the color channel and drop the opacity down very low, so only 22. I'll do the same thing with occlusion. All right, and next, maybe let's just try some ground dirt. It might be, yeah, that's way too strong. So maybe some scratches. And what I'll do is turn the metal all the way up. Don't want to affect anything other than the metal and color. Or maybe I could also affect the roughness. Alright, so let's do that. And then I'll make a folder called Scratch Mask. Drop the scratches in there, put a black mask on that. And then I'll grab some soft brush, so maybe like the dirt brush with a low flow. Put on mirror. So now we can say exactly where we want the scratches to be. So I can just go ahead and paint them on. And also in the mask editor, I'm going to make a couple changes. So I don't want to use curvature, and I want to use this texture more. So now knowing that, I'm going to remove the mask. So what I'm going to do instead is put in a white mask and just say where I don't want the texture. So I don't want it on the handles, any rubber spot basically. And everywhere else I think is fine. I just think it's a little too reflective, so I'll put the roughness at like halfway. Alright, so finally, I might just put in a little bit of dirt. So grab some dirt spots. Pretty rough. Set it to be a dirt color. Really lower the opacity. Make a folder called dirt mask. Add a black mask to the dirt mask. And then I'll just paint on a little bit of dirt. Alright, so that should be the column. So I'm going to go ahead, export the textures through HDRP. Just find the right folder really quick. And always 4K. I just like exporting it at 4K because even if in the game engine I do decide to use 2K, I feel like the textures are a little bit higher quality when you export at 4K and just set it to 2K in Unity rather than only exporting it as a 2K map in the first place. I feel like when you start with a higher texture, you preserve a little bit of detail, and I always have the option to scale it up to 4K in the future if I want to. So I'm going to give it a quick render in iRay just to see what it looks like. And yeah, I think that looks pretty good. So thank you guys all so much for watching. And I'm not sure what I'm going to be working on in the next video yet, but maybe I'll start putting the scene together in Unity. I'm not sure, but we'll figure it out. And thank you guys all so much for watching. And I will see you all in the next video.